At its peak, this civilization had cities stretching across vast territories, trade routes connecting distant lands, populations numbering in the hundreds of thousands, infrastructure that wouldn't be matched for thousands of years. And then, it stopped. No final battle, no official collapse, no conquering army. Just absence. The archaeologist's trowel uncovers homes where meals were left half-prepared, building projects abandoned mid-construction, entire neighborhoods where people simply walked away. What makes this disturbing isn't that they fell, it's how quietly it happened. Let's be clear about what we're discussing. This was not a small village. This was a system. The Indus Valley civilization covered an area larger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. Cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro housed 40,000 people each. Their urban planning was extraordinary. Grid patterns laid out with precision, sophisticated drainage beneath every street, standardized brick sizes across hundreds of miles. Archaeological evidence reveals trade networks spanning over 1,500 miles. Indus seals discovered in Mesopotamian cities. This wasn't regional trade. This was international commerce requiring ships, merchants, and mutual understanding of value across cultures. The organization required is staggering. Administrators, standardized weights and measures, quality control, engineers, farmers producing surpluses to feed specialists who aren't growing their own food. Systems don't disappear by accident. They're too complex, too invested in their own survival. And yet, within a few generations, this entire world was already being forgotten. Cities that stood for 700 years became ghost towns. The writing system vanished completely, not gradually simplified, just stopped being written. What do you think it would take to make an entire civilization forget itself? Tell me in the comments. The evidence of abandonment tells a strange story. In Mohenjo-Daro, pottery kilns with vessels still inside, never fired, construction material stacked and ready, never used, homes with furniture and everyday items in place, as if occupants stepped out and never returned. This isn't evacuation. When people flee and panic, they grab valuables. When conquered, someone else moves in. Here, people didn't pack carefully, they didn't return, and they didn't rebuild. In some districts, construction quality declined before abandonment. Mud brick replaced fire brick, repairs became shoddy. It's as if the knowledge, the standards, the commitment to excellence, all fading before the physical departure. This raises a difficult question. Why leave everything and never come back? The first explanation is environmental stress. It's logical, measurable. Climate data shows significant shifts. The Indus Valley experienced severe droughts lasting over a century.
Studies analyzing cave formations found evidence for droughts between 4,200 and 3,900 years ago, precisely when the cities declined. Monsoon systems that people relied on for generations began to fail. Rivers became erratic. For the Maya, analysis of lake sediments reveals mega-droughts, multiple severe droughts lasting decades between 800 and 1000 CE. One particularly intense drought lasted 13 consecutive years. Imagine, 13 years of failing crops, 13 years watching children go hungry. Civilizations depend on stability, and stability is fragile. A farmer plants based on centuries of knowledge. A city plans water storage on predictable patterns. Change those patterns, and everything becomes uncertain. But here's where it gets complicated. Environmental stress alone doesn't explain the speed of the disappearance. Humans are incredibly adaptable. We migrate, we adjust, we innovate. Yet these people didn't, or couldn't, or chose not to. Some sites show adaptation attempts, wells dug deeper, but these efforts seem half-hearted, as if undertaken by a population already mentally checking out. What's more, environmental stress alone doesn't explain the speed, because the drought didn't hit everywhere equally. Some cities in favorable locations were still abandoned. The second theory focuses on economic collapse. Ancient cities weren't self-sufficient. Urban centers required constant influx of resources from countryside and distant trade partners, all moving along networks requiring maintenance, security, and trust. When trade fails, cities don't starve immediately. They unravel slowly. First, luxury goods become scarce, then specialized materials disappear. Archaeological evidence from late-period Indus sites shows exactly this. Imported goods decrease. Each city becomes more isolated, more provincial. For the Maya, collapsed trade networks meant cities couldn't acquire obsidian for tools, jade for rituals, or salt for food preservation. But economic collapse is insidious. It doesn't look like collapse at first. It looks like recession, like hard times, like something temporary. People wait, make do with less, tell themselves it will get better. By the time they realize it won't, the administrative capacity to coordinate a response is already weakened. The specialists have left, the collective knowledge dispersed. Yet some cities collapsed even where resources remained. Why? Which brings us to the third explanation: internal breakdown. Collapse doesn't always come from outside. Sometimes it grows quietly from within. When benefits flow to a small elite while costs are borne by everyone else, systems become fragile. Archaeological evidence shows elite burials becoming more elaborate while common graves show malnutrition. The gap widens. In late Indus period, standardized weights and measures become inconsistent. Quality control weakens. It's as if central authority was losing its ability to enforce standards.
The Maya show even more dramatic patterns. During their terminal classic period, warfare between city-states intensified. Inscriptions shift from celebrating construction to celebrating military victories. Political fragmentation meant no regional response to drought. Each city faced crisis alone, often while fighting neighbors. But if internal problems were the cause, why is there no sign of resistance or recovery? This is where archaeology tells stories by what's missing. In Mohenjo-Daro, there are no mass graves, no evidence of epidemic disease, no burial pits for thousands of bodies. There's no widespread destruction, no burned buildings on massive scale. The cities weren't destroyed, they were abandoned. There's no final battle evidence, no weapons at defensive positions, no skeletons showing trauma. If there was conquest, it left no archaeological footprint. Archaeology tells stories, but sometimes it tells them by what's missing. What's missing is drama, crisis, catastrophe. Instead, we find gradual decline. A neighborhood empties, a workshop closes, a temple stops receiving offerings, and nobody rebuilds, nobody replaces.
Is the clue.
Do you find the absence of evidence more disturbing than evidence of catastrophe? Let me know in the comments. Which leads to the most unsettling possibility. What if this wasn't a collapse? What if it was just leaving? Recent work suggests civilizations don't always fall dramatically. They dissolve. People make individual rational decisions that collectively unmake everything. A family moves to a village where they can farm. A craftsperson relocates where trade still flows. A merchant moves to a better city. A priest seeks a position elsewhere. Each decision makes sense. Nobody's panicking. But with each departure, the city weakens. Fewer farmers mean less food. Less food means higher prices. Higher prices mean craftspeople can't stay. Fewer craftspeople mean less trade. Less trade means less wealth. The cycle accelerates. Not a collapse, not a catastrophe, just leaving. This pattern appears across history. The slow depopulation of Western Roman cities, ancestral pueblo abandonments, medieval village declines. For the Indus Valley, climate reconstructions show people migrating eastward where monsoons were more reliable. Settlement numbers increase in eastern regions precisely when great cities decline. The people didn't vanish, they relocated, they dispersed. But smaller communities couldn't maintain sophisticated infrastructure. They didn't need the writing system, they didn't need standardized weights. The knowledge didn't die in one event. It just stopped being necessary, stopped being taught, stopped being remembered. The disturbing part is how rational it all seems. Nobody made wrong decisions. A farmer seeking better land is smart. A family seeking reliable water is prudent. Yet the collective result was the death of civilizations. History remembers dramatic endings, the fall of Rome.
The burning of Alexandria. These make good stories, but this wasn't dramatic at all. This was people walking away, taking their tools, their knowledge, their children, living their lives. The Indus script didn't disappear because books were burned. It disappeared because fewer people could read it, then write it, until nobody remembered it. Not suppressed, just forgotten. The sophisticated urban planning wasn't destroyed. It simply wasn't replicated elsewhere. The knowledge remained in their heads, but wasn't transferred to the next generation in complete form. Within a few generations, descendants of people who lived in the world's most advanced cities were living in small agricultural villages. They probably told stories, but stories become legends, legends become myths, and myths fade. So why does this matter? Because we're looking at ourselves. Our civilization is a system, a vastly complex network of specialists and dependencies. Your food comes from hundreds of miles away. Your electricity requires continental grids. Your internet depends on undersea cables. Everything is connected. These systems work because people maintain them, because infrastructure gets repaired, because collective knowledge is passed down. We assume collapse is loud, catastrophic, visible. History suggests it can be silent. It can be supply chains becoming less reliable, standards slipping slightly, maintenance deferred, specialized knowledge held by fewer people. It can be young people leaving cities they can't afford, and nobody thinking about what happens when the average age keeps rising. It can be regions where investment stops, opportunities dry up, and everyone capable of leaving does. It can be political fragmentation, where coordination becomes impossible. The Indus Valley didn't have warnings. They just had people living their lives, making decisions that seemed reasonable, trying to provide for families. How success doesn't guarantee survival is the hardest lesson. The Indus Valley succeeded for 700 years. The Maya classic period lasted 6 centuries. These weren't brief civilizations. They seemed permanent. Success creates confidence. When something works for generations, you stop questioning it. You stop maintaining what doesn't seem broken. You stop preparing for scenarios that haven't happened in living memory. Until they do happen. And the collective knowledge, the social trust, the infrastructure, it's all more fragile than anyone realized. Does our modern interconnected world make us more resilient or more vulnerable? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. This civilization didn't leave us a warning. It left us a pattern. And patterns repeat, whether we notice them or not. The pattern is this. Complexity requires constant maintenance. Systems depend on people who understand them. Success is not permanent, and sometimes the end doesn't announce itself.
It arrives quietly, one decision at a time, one departure at a time, one forgotten skill at a time, until one day people walk through ruins and wonder how something so magnificent could simply stop. The wind moves through empty streets, dust settles on abandoned tools, vines reclaim stone walls. And the silence asks a question we'd rather not answer. Could it happen again?